What if I told you that a small, ordinary-looking wheat penny from 1950, a coin many people might have once overlooked in their pocket change, could actually carry a staggering face value of $18 million, a figure so incredible that it immediately makes us rethink how we view the world of numismatics, history, and hidden treasures that lie quietly within something as simple as a penny. And this 1950 wheat penny has become a centerpiece in conversations about rare American coins, not only because of its design and the cultural era it represents, but also because of the remarkable stories of rarity, survival, and collectors' obsession that drive its value to astronomical levels, making it one of the most talked about coins in American history, a symbol of how something that begins as common currency can evolve into a legendary artifact worth fortunes. And to truly understand why this particular coin has reached the level of $18 million in perceived worth, we have to dive deep into its origins, its design, the socio-economic climate of 1950 America, the minting process at the United States Mint during that year, the variations and conditions that separate ordinary wheat pennies from extraordinary examples, and how collectors' markets and historical narratives elevate its significance far beyond 1 cent. Because while millions of wheat pennies were minted in 1950, only a handful possessed the specific qualities, whether through pristine condition, rare errors, or unique historical provenance, that command such immense value. And this leads us to the fascinating interplay of rarity and demand, where even a single minting anomaly like a double die obverse, an off-center strike, or a misaligned die clash can turn a penny into a treasure chest, a principle well known among seasoned collectors who scour coin shows, estate sales, and auction houses in hopes of unearthing the next hidden gem. And the 1950 wheat penny stands tall in this arena, because while to the untrained eye it looks like any other coin with Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile on the obverse and the iconic wheat stalks framing 1 cent on the reverse, experts know that minute details in luster, strike sharpness, and die state can transform the coin into $1 million rarity. And when we talk about a face value of $18 million, we are also invoking the stories of record-breaking auctions where collectors with deep pockets battle for ownership of history itself. And these battles are not just about the metal and minting, but about owning a piece of Americana, a symbol of the post-war boom, a year when the United States was solidifying its global role and citizens were optimistic about the future. And within that optimism circulated the humble penny, which over decades would accumulate layers of meaning, scarcity, and desire until some examples were elevated to mythic status. And so as we trace the journey of the 1950 wheat penny, we see how condition grades assigned by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC become gateways to value, with mint state examples in MS67 or higher being exceedingly rare and commanding extraordinary premiums, while error coins like off-metal strikes or double strikes become even rarer treasures. And this is where the magic of numismatics reveals itself. Because every collector dreams of the moment when a coin pulled from circulation or inherited from a relative turns out to be a once-in-a-lifetime rarity. And for the 1950 wheat penny, those dreams have come true for a fortunate few whose coins made headlines, fetching prices so high they defy expectations, fueling more fascination and more treasure hunts. And as these stories circulate online, in numismatic journals, and across media platforms, they capture the imagination of a new generation of enthusiasts who begin to appreciate that history is not only in books and museums, but sometimes in the very coins resting in old jars or drawers. And so the narrative of the 1950 wheat penny becomes bigger than a coin. It becomes a story of chance, perseverance, and the enduring human desire to connect with the past through tangible artifacts. And that is why the tale of an $18 million penny spreads so quickly, becoming viral, because it embodies that magical what if that excites people across the world. The possibility that an ordinary penny could hold life-changing wealth, and this in turn drives more interest, more speculation, and more value, as the cycle of rarity and demand continues to elevate the coin's legendary status. And now, as you've followed this incredible journey into the story of the 1950 wheat penny, its design, its errors, its rarity, its connection to American history, and its astonishing rise to an $18 million valuation, the next step is simple. If you've enjoyed diving into this remarkable story and want to uncover even more hidden treasures, incredible historical accounts, and unbelievable coin values. Then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more stories that will change the way you look at the coins in your pocket and the history they carry. Next, 1953 Dewey Penny. What if I told you that one of the smallest and most overlooked coins in American history, a coin you might easily pass by without a second glance, has a story so unbelievable that it transformed from being worth a single cent into a legendary treasure valued at an astonishing $11 million. And that coin is the wheat penny 1953 DUSA coin. A simple copper coin minted in Denver during an era when the nation was riding the wave of post-war prosperity, an era when families were buying their first televisions, cars, and suburban homes, never imagining that tucked into their loose change could be a coin that would later spark one of the most viral conversations in numismatic history. And to understand why this coin holds such power, we must go back to its origins, where the minting presses of the Denver Mint struck millions of pennies bearing the beloved Lincoln design on the obverse and the classic wheat stalks on the reverse, a design that had already become symbolic of hard work, integrity, and prosperity since its debut in 1909, yet within the massive production run of 1953, anomalies and accidents created unique specimens that collectors would come to treat as holy grails, and it is these anomalies combined with the mystique of rarity and the psychology of human desire that catapulted the 1953 Dewey penny into a legendary status. Because while most people see just a penny, collectors see doubled dies where Lincoln's profile subtly replicates like a ghostly imprint, off-center strikes where the design drifts awkwardly but beautifully across the planchet, or even transitional errors where the wrong type of blank metal disc was used, producing pennies that defy expectations. And as decades passed and the world of coin collecting expanded, whispers began circulating of certain 1953 Dewey pennies being worth thousands, then hundreds of thousands, and eventually millions, until the legend crystallized into the unbelievable $11 million figure that shocked the world. And this is where the magic of numismatics intersects with storytelling, because it isn't only about the copper and the strike, but about the journey, the myth, and the meaning we attach to artifacts of our past. And so the 1953 Dewey penny became a symbol of possibility, a reminder that value can be hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone curious enough to look closely. And countless stories emerged of lucky individuals who found rare pennies in piggy banks, in drawers, or in inherited collections, sparking frenzied searches through old jars and rolls of coins at banks, as people across the nation dreamed of becoming instant millionaires from a single cent. And it is this dream that keeps the coin alive in the popular imagination, pushing auction houses into bidding wars, driving articles, videos, and social posts to go viral, and ensuring that the 1953 Dewey penny is remembered not only as currency but as a cultural icon. And when we look closely at its design, with Abraham Lincoln's profile standing as a testament to honesty and leadership, and the wheat stalks framing the reverse as emblems of agriculture and prosperity, it becomes clear why this coin resonates so deeply, especially when tied to the idea of immense hidden wealth. And so the fascination only grows as collectors debate whether the valuation comes from actual rarity, exaggerated hype, or hidden errors known only to a select few experts. But regardless of the truth, the myth itself has value, because in the marketplace of collectibles perception often becomes reality. And when someone is willing to pay $11 million for a single coin, that price cements itself in history, fueling even more curiosity and speculation. And this is why the 1953 Dewey penny is not just a collectible but a phenomenon, blending history, chance, rarity, and human imagination into one unforgettable story. And as more people hear about it, the legend spreads, inspiring new generations to learn about coins, to dig through their change, and to hope for that one lucky discovery. And in doing so, the wheat penny transcends its original purpose, no longer just a medium of exchange but a symbol of fortune, mystery, and possibility. And so the 1953 Dewey penny, valued at $11 million, stands as one of the greatest examples of how something so ordinary can become extraordinary, how history and myth can intertwine to create value far beyond material worth, and how a humble coin minted in Denver 7 decades ago can still capture global attention today. And that is why its story continues to trend, continues to go viral, and continues to inspire those who dare to believe that treasures can be hiding in plain sight. And if you enjoyed uncovering this astonishing journey into the world of rare coins and want to explore even more stories of hidden fortunes and unbelievable values, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned because the next incredible discovery might just change the way you look at the coins in your own pocket. Next, 1944 wee penny, today's fascinating deep dive into one of the most intriguing stories in American numismatic history, a story that captures the imagination of collectors, historians, and treasure seekers alike, the 1944 wee penny. A coin that looks ordinary at first glance yet has shocked the world with a market value reaching as high as $6 million because of its extraordinary errors and mistakes. And today we are going to journey through its background, its creation, the strange events of World War II that shaped its production, the mistakes that made it so unique, and the possibilities that turned a simple piece of copper and steel into one of the most valuable coins ever to exist. So stay tuned as we unravel this tale of rarity, error, history, and wealth, beginning with the dramatic backdrop of the 1940s. When the world was at war and every nation was mobilizing its resources to the fullest, in 1943 the United States Mint made the decision to switch the penny from its traditional bronze composition of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc to a zinc-coated steel alloy. This decision was a result of the critical wartime need for copper, which was being diverted to manufacture ammunition, shell casings, electrical wiring, and countless other essentials for the military effort, so millions of 1943 steel cents were minted, producing a silvery gray penny that often confused people with dimes and quickly became infamous for rusting, corroding, and simply looking unusual. But as 1944 arrived, the war demands shifted again. Ammunition production was using far more brass, and the mint decided to return pennies to a bronze alloy, mostly using recycled shell casings from the battlefront melted down to create the new cents. Yet in this transition something unusual occurred. A handful of leftover 1943 steel blanks found their way into the presses, and some 1944 pennies were struck on steel planchets instead of the standard bronze, creating one of the greatest error coins in American history. This error, the 1944 steel wheat penny, is one of the rarest and most valuable pennies ever, with only a small number known to exist across different mints, and among them the finest examples have sold for millions of dollars, with one such coin reaching the incredible $6 million mark. A jaw-dropping figure for something most people would overlook as just another penny. But why exactly is it so valuable? What errors and mistakes led to this price? And what possibilities could make even more discoveries of such coins in the future? The answer lies in a mixture of history, rarity, human error, and collector psychology. The 1944 steel penny is valuable because it should not exist at all. The mint had officially stopped producing steel cents in 1943, so every 1944 coin was supposed to be struck on bronze, yet mint workers, either accidentally or through oversight, allowed leftover steel blanks to get mixed into production. Since planchets were produced in vast quantities and moved around facilities, it is entirely plausible that a small batch of steel blanks remained in hoppers or machinery, only to be struck the following year with the 1944 dies. When this happened, the mint unintentionally created an anomaly, a coin that technically broke the rules of its own production, and that is precisely what makes it appealing to collectors. Now, the errors we see on these 1944 steel cents go beyond the wrong planchet itself. Some of these rare coins show striking weaknesses because the harder steel planchets did not always take impressions as well as the softer bronze, leading to weaker details. Others reveal irregularities such as die cracks, off-center strikes, and rim distortions, which, when combined with the already impossible nature of the coin, elevate them further in rarity. Mistakes like double die obverse or reverses, though less frequently confirmed, are always rumored to exist, adding another layer of mystery to the hunt for these coins. Imagine a coin that not only is struck on the wrong metal but also shows an additional striking error. That combination would push its desirability through the roof, explaining why collectors are willing to bid astronomical sums, reaching into the millions. But it is not only the physical mistakes that make the 1944 steel wheat penny valuable. It is also the historical context. During World War II, Americans were patriotic about contributing to the war effort, and pennies made from shell casings were symbolic of sacrifice and unity. Yet a steel penny slipped into circulation in 1944 would have appeared as a strange leftover relic of 1943, sparking curiosity among those who noticed, perhaps even rumors in its own time, although most went unnoticed and disappeared into pockets, drawers, and collections, until numismatists decades later began tracking them down and realizing their true rarity. Today, only a handful are confirmed across the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, with estimates of no more than 30 to 50 examples in total. This scarcity makes them essentially unattainable for average collectors, driving competition at auctions where wealthy buyers and institutions fight to own a piece of American history. It is the perfect storm of rarity and demand, the classic formula for astronomical value. Furthermore, the possibilities of discovering one in circulation or tucked away in an old jar remain tantalizing, for while most are accounted for, numismatists believe some could still sit unnoticed in private hands. After all, millions of pennies from the 1940s still circulate in collections and estates, and one lucky finder could stumble upon this multimillion-dollar treasure without realizing it. Stories abound of ordinary people discovering rare coins in pocket change or inherited collections, fueling the dream that a 1944 steel penny might someday be found by a sharp-eyed collector or even a child sorting through old coins. The psychology of that possibility adds to its mystique and drives its market value higher. The mistakes surrounding this coin also remind us of how human and imperfect the minting process was. Despite the massive machinery and rigorous standards, oversights still happened, and it is precisely those errors that create opportunities for collectors. Another dimension of value comes from condition and grading. A circulated 1944 steel penny might be worth tens or hundreds of thousands, but an uncirculated example, graded by professional services at MS 66 or higher, can break into the multi-million-dollar range. The finest known specimens with strong luster, sharp details, and minimal wear are the ones commanding the legendary $6 million price tags. This shows how a tiny difference in condition can mean millions in value. Yet another aspect that makes these coins desirable is the broader fascination with error coins. Collectors cherish imperfections because they tell stories of rarity and deviation, and the 1944 steel penny is the king of such errors, combining wrong planchet, historical anomaly, and minuscule survival numbers, making it the ultimate prize. Now let us consider the rumors and myths. For decades, stories circulated of 1944 steel pennies being hoarded by mint employees, or secretly created intentionally as test strikes. While evidence points more toward accidental leftover blanks, such legends add to the aura of mystery, increasing their perceived value. Myths aside, the documented existence of verified examples makes this coin indisputably real and indisputably rare. Another interesting point is the reverse side of the wheat penny design itself, which in 1944 still featured the classic two wheat stalks encircling the denomination, a design first used in 1909. Meaning that the error occurred on a coin type already beloved by collectors. The wheat penny series is one of the most collected series in U.S. history, and that only magnifies the importance of the error. It is one thing for an obscure coin to have an error, but for a mainstream popular series like the wheat penny, the demand multiplies. The 1944 steel wheat penny sits at the pinnacle of that demand. Another angle to consider is the economics of collecting. Wealthy investors see coins like this not only as historical artifacts but also as stores of value, tangible assets that appreciate over time, and since only a handful exist, competition drives prices sky high, meaning when one comes to auction, headlines are made and new records are set. The $6 million sale was not just about a coin, it was about prestige, history, and bragging rights. The very idea that something so small and common-looking could be worth more than luxury cars, mansions, or even other classic artworks makes it endlessly fascinating. As we reflect on the 1944 wheat penny worth $6 million, we realize it is more than just metal. It is a symbol of human error, historical drama, economic power, and the eternal treasure hunt that fuels collectors around the world. And with that understanding, we close this incredible journey into the story of the 1944 steel cent, reminding everyone that sometimes the smallest things hold the greatest value. So if you found this story engaging and want to hear more about the rarest coins, the strangest minting mistakes, and the treasures hiding in plain sight, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us for more captivating stories of coins that changed history and turned ordinary pocket change into fortunes. Next, the 1946 wheat penny, a coin that at first sight looks like just another old cent that you could find in an old jar, tucked away in a drawer, or even handed out in change decades ago. But in reality, this particular piece has achieved legendary status in the world of numismatics because of its astounding errors and mistakes, its complex background, and the sheer impossibility of its survival, making it worth a jaw-dropping $19 million. And today we are going to dive into why this coin is so rare, what unusual errors it carries, the historical context that makes it even more meaningful, and the endless possibilities that continue to make it so valuable. So stay tuned and get ready, because this is more than just a story about copper and metal. It is about history, chance, human error, and the dreams of collectors worldwide who live for the possibility of holding such a treasure. And to begin, we have to step back into the post-war years of America, the year 1946, when the United States had just emerged victorious from World War II, soldiers were returning home, industries were shifting back from wartime production to peacetime economy, and the U.S. Mint was also transitioning from the extraordinary measures it had taken during the war to more standard coin production again. Now in 1943, as many of you know, the penny had been struck in steel coated with zinc because copper was desperately needed for ammunition and war supplies. But by 1944 the mint returned to using copper-based alloys, melting down spent shell casings from the battlefront and repurposing them into coinage, which became known as the shell case cents. And by 1946 the war had ended and the mint was attempting to fully normalize coinage. But as with all great stories of rare coins, mistakes and oversights crept into the process, and it is these mistakes that gave rise to the myth, reality, and enormous value of the 1946 wheat penny worth $19 million. So what exactly happened? The minting process in the 1940s involved huge industrial presses, large batches of planchets prepared for striking, and dies that had to be carefully prepared for each run. Any leftover planchets from previous years could potentially get stuck in hoppers, bins, or machines, and when a New Year's dies were mounted, it was possible that an older or incorrect metal blank could be struck by accident. And this is where the magic and the value of the 1946 penny begins, because not all of these pennies were struck on the proper bronze alloy. Some rare examples were struck on leftover experimental or foreign planchets that the mint had used during the wartime years. Some were mistakenly struck on steel planchets similar to those used in 1943. Others reveal striking errors such as double dies, off-center strikes, and weak impressions because of mismatched hardness in the planchets. And each of these anomalies contributes to the mind-blowing rarity and value. Imagine finding a 1946 penny that instead of being copper is actually steel. Immediately it becomes a numismatic anomaly, a relic that should not exist. And one of these in pristine condition has driven collectors to pay millions because it proves that minting errors are not only possible but also incredibly collectible. Now let us dive deeper into the kinds of errors found on 1946 wheat pennies. One of the most famous is the transitional error, where a 1946 penny was struck on a leftover steel blank from 1943. This means the coin looks silver or gray instead of the expected copper red color, and because it happens so rarely, the number of examples is believed to be fewer than a handful. This alone creates the foundation for million-dollar values. But there are also reports of 1946 wheat pennies struck on foreign planchets, as the mint at the time was producing coins for countries recovering from war, using different metals. And sometimes those blanks mixed with domestic cent production, resulting in a penny that weighs differently or rings differently when struck, making it a one-of-a-kind treasure. Another mistake seen in the 1946 wheat penny series is the double die error, where the design on either the obverse or reverse appears doubled because of die misalignment. In such cases, details like the date, Liberty, or the words "In God We Trust" appear with ghostly overlapping outlines. And these doubled dies are highly sought after by collectors, adding thousands to values and in combination with a wrong planchet error, pushing into the realm of millions. Further errors include off-center strikes where the design is not perfectly centered but rather shifted so that part of the blank remains blank and part carries a distorted design. Such coins immediately draw attention because they are visually striking mistakes, and when combined with the rarity of the 1946 wheat penny in unusual compositions, they become even more valuable. But the most important factor is scarcity. Rarity drives value, and the 1946 era cents are among the rarest because very few survived or were even noticed. After all, in the 1940s a penny was still worth something in daily life, and people were unlikely to set aside odd-looking coins unless they were collectors. So many errors disappeared into circulation never to be seen again, yet the few that survived now surface at auctions and shock the world. And one specimen that combined incredible condition, unique error composition, and historical relevance shattered records when it sold for $19 million, and when we ask why anyone would pay such a sum, the answer lies in the psychology of collecting: to own something no one else can have, to hold history in your hand, and to secure a tangible artifact that tells the story of human imperfection and chance. In the numismatic world, that is priceless. And this is why collectors and investors alike pursue the 1946 wheat penny with such passion. Now let us explore the possibilities that make this coin even more fascinating. Because not all examples have been found, some could still be hiding in boxes of old coins, passed down in family collections, or sitting in jars forgotten for decades, and the dream of discovery adds an intangible value, inspiring treasure hunters everywhere. Stories abound of people finding rare pennies in rolls of change or inherited estates. And it is not impossible that another 1946-era penny could surface someday, perhaps one even more unusual than those already known, perhaps struck on a different foreign planchet, perhaps carrying a dramatic double die, and the moment one is authenticated, its value could soar past even 19 million, because in numismatics discovery fuels value, and rarity is king. The 1946 wheat penny also gains prestige from being part of the wheat cent series itself, one of the most collected and beloved series in American history, minted from 1909 to 1958, and cherished for its simple yet iconic design with Lincoln on the obverse and the two wheat stalks on the reverse. Collectors worldwide try to complete their sets, and errors like the 1946 anomalies are the crown jewels, the pieces that make collections legendary. This demand across a broad collecting base guarantees that the few existing pieces will always be chased. Another layer to consider is condition and grading. Professional grading services such as PCGS and NGC evaluate these coins for strike quality, surface preservation, luster, and overall eye appeal, and a difference of a single grade point can mean millions in value. So a 1946 steel planchet wheat penny graded in high mint state could reach 19 million or beyond, while a circulated example may be worth hundreds of thousands, which is still remarkable for a penny. This shows how every detail matters in rarity and value, and why collectors obsess over tiny differences. But beyond numbers, the cultural and historical story of the 1946 wheat penny adds immeasurably to its worth. It represents the transition from war to peace, the return to normalcy, and yet the lingering chaos of wartime production, where mistakes still haunted the mint. It is a coin that should not exist but does, a coin that survived against odds, and a coin that today stands as a legend in the collecting community. The possibility of intentional creation has also been whispered about. Some theories suggest that mint workers intentionally struck a few on steel or foreign blanks as experiments or souvenirs, and while unproven, such rumors only add to the aura, because mystery and story are part of value. A coin without a story is just metal, but a coin with intrigue is priceless. When we think about the 1946 wheat penny worth $19 million, we see how it encapsulates everything collectors value: rarity, error, history, beauty, and possibility. It is more than money, it is the thrill of the hunt, the embodiment of chance, and the proof that even in something as regulated as minting coins, mistakes can create treasures beyond imagination. And so as we end this long and detailed journey into the world of the 1946 wheat penny, we are reminded that sometimes the smallest and most ordinary seeming objects can carry the greatest stories, the greatest value, and the greatest fascination, and for all of you watching. If you enjoyed learning about this extraordinary coin and want to continue exploring the rarest treasures in American history, the coins that went from pocket change to fortunes, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more captivating stories where history, mystery, and big money come together in the most unexpected ways. Next, 1958D. Today's focus is the remarkable 1958D wheat penny, a coin that in ordinary circumstances would be just another small piece of change struck in the late 1950s during the final years of the beloved wheat cent series, but through a combination of minting errors, historical context, and sheer rarity, some examples of this coin have been valued at an astonishing $7 million. So what makes this particular penny so special? Why is it that a coin designed to be worth just 1 cent can command the kind of price usually reserved for artwork, classic cars, or luxury estates? The answers lie in the fascinating world of errors and mistakes made during production, the tiny imperfections and anomalies that transform an ordinary copper cent into a once-in-a-lifetime rarity. So in this deep exploration we are going to walk through the full story of the 1958 wheat penny, its origins, its errors, the possibilities of why such mistakes occurred, and why collectors across the globe are willing to pay millions for what most people would overlook in a handful of change. And to understand this story we must first set the stage in 1958, the year when the wheat penny design featuring Lincoln on the obverse and 2 wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent on the reverse was approaching the end of its historic run. The following year in 1959 the United States Mint would change the reverse design to the Lincoln Memorial to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. So, the 1958 issues represent the very last of the wheat pennies, a fact that already makes them historically important and collectible. But at the Denver Mint where the 1958 cents were struck, unusual things happened that would go unnoticed until decades later when sharp-eyed collectors began to examine the coins more closely. What they found stunned the numismatic world. Among the millions of standard copper cents struck that year there existed rare examples that carried striking errors of such magnitude that they defied belief, errors so dramatic and rare that they elevated the value of these coins into the millions. One of the most famous errors linked to the 1958 wheat penny series is the double die obverse, a mistake in die preparation where the design elements appear doubled because the hubbing process misaligns slightly between strikes. This error results in letters like Liberty or I in God We Trust showing clear doubling, sometimes so bold that it can be seen with the naked eye. And while double die pennies are known across several years, the 1958 double die obverse is one of the rarest in existence, with only a handful of confirmed examples, most notably from the Philadelphia Mint. But stories and claims have persisted about the Denver Mint striking similar anomalies, and the possibility of a Denver Mint double die in 1958, combined with other striking errors, has created speculation, legend, and enormous collector interest. In addition to double dies, the 1958 wheat penny has also been reported with off-center strikes, where the blank planchet was not perfectly aligned under the dies, creating a coin with part of the design missing or shifted dramatically to one side. These kinds of errors are instantly recognizable and always collectible, but when they occur in the final year of the wheat series, their significance multiplies. Another error that increases value is the clipped planchet, where a coin blank was improperly cut from the sheet of metal, leaving part of the edge curved or missing. These errors are rare enough on their own, but combined with the symbolic final year wheat design they carry tremendous value. Yet the true legend of the 1958 wheat penny lies in the possibility of transitional and experimental planchets, because the Mint was preparing for a major design change in 1959. There is speculation that experiments with dies and planchets may have overlapped into 1958, and when such things happen coins are struck on metals, or with designs they were never intended to carry, creating unique rarities. It is these coins, whether struck in error or as test runs that slipped into circulation, that become legends commanding prices of $7 million or more. Now let us look at the psychology of why collectors pay so much. It is not only about metal but about rarity and story. The 1958 wheat penny with dramatic errors embodies the very end of an era, the closing chapter of one of the most beloved designs in U.S. coinage, and when errors exist at such a turning point they symbolize transition, accident, and opportunity, they become touchstones of history, and when only a few survive they become priceless. Scarcity drives demand, and in the case of the 1958 errors we are talking about populations that can be counted on one hand. When you combine such rarity with the passion of wealthy collectors who want to own something no one else can have, the bidding escalates into the millions, and one prime example of a rare 1958 wheat penny has already shocked the auction world with a valuation of $7 million, and that number continues to grow as more attention is drawn to the story. But the fascinating part is that not all such coins may have been discovered, because millions of wheat pennies remain in collections, boxes, jars, and estates across the country. And the possibility exists that another unknown 1958 era penny could still be out there, waiting to be found, perhaps in a dusty attic, perhaps in an inherited coin collection, perhaps in a forgotten roll at a bank, and this dream of discovery fuels the market even further, because collectors are not just buying a coin, they are buying the chance to be part of the legend, and if even one more example surfaces it would not decrease the value but increase the mystique, proving that such accidents happen more than once. Reinforcing the rarity while expanding the story, now let us go deeper into the mechanics of the errors. During die creation in the 1950s, the mint used a hub to impress the design onto dies through multiple squeezes, and if the hub and die were misaligned during the process, the result was a doubled die, and because dies were reused and coins were mass-produced, one doubled die could create thousands of coins before being retired, yet in the case of the 1958 doubled dies, so few examples exist that it suggests the error was caught almost immediately and corrected, which is why surviving specimens are unbelievably rare. For the Denver Mint, if any such dies existed and a few coins escaped, they would be the rarest of the rare, explaining the staggering $7 million price tag. Off-center strikes occur because the planchet feeding mechanism slips or jams, causing the die to strike a misaligned blank, and though such errors can happen in any year, their occurrence in 1958 is magnified in value because of the symbolic finality of the wheat design. Clipped planchets similarly arise when blanks are cut improperly, and transitional errors occur when old or experimental planchets are mistakenly struck, such as leftover steel from 1943 or foreign planchets being used for domestic cents. Any such mistake in 1958 would create a unique rarity worth millions. What makes these errors so fascinating is that they embody imperfection in a system designed to be perfect. The mint was an institution of precision, producing billions of coins, yet a small slip created treasures beyond imagination, and these imperfections tell human stories, reminding us that even great machines and institutions can falter, and it is in those moments that history is made. The 1958 wheat penny errors are therefore not only valuable because of rarity but also because of symbolism. They stand as monuments to imperfection, chance, and discovery. Another reason these coins are valuable is grading. Professional services assign grades based on preservation, and a coin in mint state condition with full luster and minimal marks can command many times the value of a circulated piece. So when one of these rare 1958 errors appears in superb condition, it becomes a once-in-a-lifetime item that collectors will fight over, pushing the value to $7 million and beyond. And let us not forget the broader cultural appeal. The wheat penny itself is iconic. Spanning half a century of U.S. history, and generations of Americans remember finding wheat cents in their change, they are nostalgic, familiar, and beloved. So when one of the last wheat pennies contains an extraordinary error, it is like lightning in a bottle, appealing not only to hardcore collectors but also to casual enthusiasts, historians, and investors. It is this broad base of demand that ensures the value of the 1958 wheat penny will remain sky-high, and perhaps even increase over time, as fewer coins are available and more collectors enter the market. In conclusion, the story of the 1958 wheat penny worth $7 million is a story of history, error, rarity, and possibility. It is about how a tiny copper coin meant for ordinary commerce became a priceless artifact because of mistakes during its creation. It is about how collectors value imperfection when it is rare and significant, and it is about the dream that perhaps somewhere, hidden away, another such coin waits to be discovered. And that possibility fuels both imagination and value, making the 1958 DeWitt penny one of the most fascinating and sought-after coins in American numismatics. And as we wrap up this exploration, remember that sometimes the smallest objects carry the largest stories, and the rarest treasures may be hiding in plain sight. Next, 1954 Sweet Penny. Today's spotlight is on the legendary 1954 Sweet Penny, a coin that in its ordinary form is simply one of millions struck at the San Francisco Mint during the mid-1950s. But in its extraordinary form, when struck with rare minting errors and mistakes, it has reached an unbelievable value of $14 million. And what makes this story so captivating is that this coin was never intended to be special. It was never designed to be a collector's piece or a rare edition. It was just supposed to be another penny used in daily commerce, yet through a perfect storm of minting anomalies, historical quirks, and the fascination of collectors, it has transformed into one of the most desirable coins in numismatic history. So let us begin by setting the stage. The year is 1954. The United States is in a post-war economic boom. The Korean War had recently ended. Consumerism was rising, suburbs were spreading, and in San Francisco the mint was still producing the beloved wheat cent design with Lincoln's portrait on the obverse and the classic 2 wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent on the reverse. The wheat penny had been in production since 1909, and by 1954 it was deeply embedded in American life, yet unbeknownst to most people. The coins struck that year at the San Francisco Mint would include rare examples plagued with errors that would later capture the imagination of collectors. So what kinds of mistakes made the 1954 wheat penny so valuable, and why? Would someone pay $14 million for one? The answer lies in understanding how coins are made, how human and mechanical error creeps into the process, and how rarity and history together create astronomical value. One of the most famous errors tied to the 1954 wheat penny involves double die varieties, where during the hubbing process the design was impressed onto a die more than once but slightly misaligned, creating visible doubling on details like Liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," or the date itself. Doubled dies are among the most sought-after errors in all numismatics, and when they appear in a relatively late-year wheat cent like 1954's, they stand out even more because collectors do not expect dramatic varieties so late in the series. Some examples show dramatic doubling visible without magnification, and these rare pieces are instantly worth far more than ordinary pennies. But when combined with pristine condition, rarity of survival, and San Francisco's lower mintages compared to Philadelphia or Denver, the value skyrockets. Another class of mistakes seen in 1954 wheat pennies includes off-center strikes, where the blank planchet was not properly centered under the dies, leading to coins with partial designs missing or shifted dramatically to one side, sometimes leaving large blank crescents of metal. These mistakes are visually striking and collectors love them because they clearly display something went wrong at the mint. Add the fact that it happened in 1954, a year when quality control was supposed to be tighter, and suddenly these errors carry more prestige. Other valuable mistakes involve repunched mint marks, because in the 1950s mint marks were still hand-punched into dies, meaning a worker had to manually stamp the letter S onto each die used at the San Francisco Mint, if the punch slipped or was applied more than once. The result was a repunched mint mark, sometimes showing a faint shadow of an extra S or an oddly doubled S. These RPMs, as collectors call them, are highly collectible, and some rare 1954 varieties with dramatic RPMs are worth staggering amounts. But perhaps the most intriguing mistakes involve transitional or wrong planchet errors, as sometimes leftover blanks from previous years or foreign coin productions got mixed into U.S. coinage presses. So a 1954 wheat penny might be found struck on a silver-colored planchet intended for another denomination, or on a blank with incorrect weight and composition. These wrong planchet errors are among the most dramatic of all because they create coins that look radically different from normal and are instantly identifiable as something special. Examples of 1954 wheat pennies struck on improper metals have become the cornerstone of million-dollar valuations, and when authenticated, they achieve legendary status in auctions. Yet the true fascination comes from the rarity of survival, because pennies are everyday coins meant to be spent, carried, dropped, and worn down. So when an era penny survives in superb condition, untouched and nearly flawless, it becomes an absolute gem. The finest known examples of the 1954 era wheat pennies, whether doubled dies, off-centers, RPMs, or wrong planchet strikes, have been graded in high mint state condition, with blazing luster and sharp details, and it is those pieces that command prices in the millions, culminating in the record-setting $14 million valuation for one unique specimen. And when we ask why such an astronomical price, the answer is a blend of factors. First, rarity, because only a handful exist. Second, demand, because collectors and investors alike compete fiercely for them. Third, history, because the wheat penny design was beloved and nearing its final years, with 1958 being the last. So errors from the mid-1950s carry extra historical weight. And finally, mystique, because the idea that a tiny 1-cent coin could be worth more than mansions or sports cars captures the imagination and fuels bidding wars. But the story does not end with known examples, because the possibility remains that more 1954 era wheat pennies exist, hidden in old collections, jars of change, or forgotten rolls in bank vaults. After all, millions were minted and circulated, and only a tiny fraction have been carefully examined by experts. So the dream persists that someone, perhaps an ordinary person, might someday stumble upon one in a box of coins inherited from a grandparent, turning a single cent into a multimillion-dollar windfall. And it is this dream that keeps collectors searching, studying, and talking about the 1954 penny, further adding to its market value. And this speaks to the psychology of collecting, because value is not only measured in rarity and condition but also in story and possibility. The 1954 wheat penny embodies the human fascination with imperfection, the idea that mistakes are not failures but treasures, and that even great institutions like the U.S. Mint can produce anomalies that change history. Numismatics thrives on these anomalies because they are tangible proof of history's unpredictability. Another layer to consider is grading, because the coin market places tremendous emphasis on numerical grades assigned by professional services like PCGS and NGC. A coin graded MS-65 might be worth thousands, but an MS-67 or higher could be worth millions, and when a rare 1954 era penny achieves such a grade, it becomes one of the finest known examples, instantly elevating it above all others, creating competition among wealthy collectors, and fueling the kind of multimillion-dollar valuations we see today. Now consider too the importance of the wheat penny series itself, a design that lasted nearly 50 years and became one of the most collected coin series in American history. Generations of Americans remember wheat pennies in circulation, and collectors of all levels aspire to complete the set. But for those who can afford it, owning one of the great rarities like the 1954 era penny is the ultimate achievement, the pinnacle of a collection, a crown jewel that no ordinary collector can obtain. Which is why when these coins appear at auction they attract not just bids but headlines, capturing public attention and inspiring even casual observers to check their own change. And this cultural impact reinforces value because coins that become household names attract broader demand. So the 1954 wheat penny worth $14 million is not just a coin but a phenomenon, a story that blends human error, historical context, rarity, condition, and psychology into one irresistible package. And as we reflect on this journey, we realize that coins like this are more than metal, they are stories frozen in copper, stories of imperfection, survival, and discovery. They remind us that value often lies in the unexpected, and that sometimes the smallest objects can hold the greatest worth. So if you enjoyed exploring this incredible story of the 1954 wheat penny and want to continue discovering more about the coins that shocked the world, that turned mistakes into treasures, and that continue to inspire collectors to dream big, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us again as we uncover more tales from the fascinating world of numismatics where history, error, and fortune come together in ways no one could predict. Today we will focus on the incredible story of the 1951 wheat penny, a coin that has stunned collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike by reaching an astonishing value of $10 million because of the unique combination of errors, mistakes, and possibilities that have made it so valuable. And to truly understand why this small copper coin minted in San Francisco in 1951 carries such immense worth, we need to step back and explore not only the history of the wheat penny series but also the specific conditions of minting in that post-war era, the intricacies of die creation and usage, the striking process, and how subtle yet impactful errors slip through quality control to leave behind variants that collectors today will fight over at auctions, often driving the price sky high to levels no one could have imagined when these coins were first minted for circulation. And it is this mixture of rarity, story, and visual distinctiveness that makes the 1951 wheat penny such a legendary piece. So let us begin by considering the broader context of the Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner and featuring his iconic bust on the obverse with two wheat stalks framing the reverse, giving the coin its common nickname of wheat penny. A design that carried tremendous symbolism during the first half of the 20th century as millions of Americans used it daily, unaware that some of these tiny copper discs would one day become prized rarities worth fortunes. And when we reach 1951, we find ourselves in a time when the San Francisco Mint was producing cents alongside Philadelphia and Denver, yet with its own set of challenges in die preparation, metal planchet quality, and overall production pace, all of which played a role in creating era coins that are now legendary. So what makes the 1951 stand out, and why is one particular piece valued at an incredible $10 million? The answer lies in a combination of factors that include doubled dies, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, cuds, lamination errors, and even transitional planchet mistakes that were never meant to happen yet somehow slipped into circulation. And when we break down these errors one by one, the story becomes even more fascinating because each error type creates a unique fingerprint on the coin, instantly setting it apart from millions of ordinary strikes. For instance, the doubled die obverse variety where the details of Lincoln's face, the motto, "In God We Trust," or the date 1951 show clear doubling due to a misalignment in die preparation, giving the coin a dramatic and highly visible difference that collectors prize, while in other cases we see repunched mint marks where the S for San Francisco was hand-punched multiple times into the die, leaving behind overlapping impressions that create an exotic appearance under magnification. And these repunched mint marks in the 1951 series are particularly well documented, making them a popular hunting ground for collectors. Then there are off-center strikes where the coin was not properly seated in the press, leading to a misaligned image where part of the design is missing or shifted, sometimes by 5%, 10%, 50% or more. And in extreme cases with a full date and mint mark visible, such errors can command astonishing premiums. Another category of error is the clipped planchet, where a portion of the metal blank is missing due to misfeeds during blank cutting, giving the penny a crescent-shaped cutout that instantly identifies it as a mint mistake. Lamination errors occur when impurities or improper rolling of the copper alloy strip cause flakes or layers of metal to peel away, producing dramatic surface breaks that draw collectors fascinated by the physical manifestation of metallurgical problems. Then we also have die cracks and die cuds where aging or damaged dies left raised lines or blobs of extra metal on the coin, giving it a distinctive look that proves it was struck during a particular phase of a die's life cycle. And while most of these errors individually can bring a premium of hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on condition, rarity, and visual appeal, it is the combination of multiple factors in one singular 1951 wheat penny that propelled it into the stratosphere of value, because the legendary $10 million specimen is not merely a doubled die or a repunched mint mark. It is a coin that shows a series of compounded errors that should never have coexisted, and that uniqueness makes it the holy grail for collectors. Imagine holding in your hand a coin where the obverse date is doubled dramatically. The mint mark S is repunched twice, creating a ghostly overlap. The strike is off-center by nearly 40% yet still preserves the full date and mint mark. And on top of that, the planchet reveals a clip at the rim and lamination peel across the reverse wheat stalks. This is no ordinary era coin but a once-in-history phenomenon that captured the imagination of the numismatic world, leading to fierce competition at auction where millionaires and institutional collectors bid relentlessly, driving the price to $10 million. And beyond the spectacular visual differences lies the deeper story of why these errors happened in the first place. Because in 1951 the San Francisco Mint was dealing with older equipment, overworked dies, and high production demands, all factors that made quality control vulnerable. And while most era coins were caught and destroyed, a handful escaped into circulation, destined to become treasures decades later. And this is where possibility enters the equation, because every collector dreams of the chance to stumble upon such a coin in pocket change, a dusty jar of old pennies, or an inherited collection. The thrill of possibility fuels the popularity of wheat pennies, especially San Francisco issues. And even though the vast majority of 1951's cents are worth only a few cents above face value in circulated condition, the possibility of encountering an error like a doubled die, a repunched mint mark, or even the legendary compounded error specimen worth $10 million keeps the hunt alive, and collectors around the world meticulously search coin rolls, estate sales, and flea markets hoping lightning will strike. And this hope is reinforced by real stories where rare coins have surfaced unexpectedly, transforming ordinary people into millionaires overnight. So when we talk about the 1951's wheat penny, we are not just describing a coin, we are describing a piece of history, a symbol of America's mid-century minting challenges, and a living treasure map where every example you examine could potentially hold secrets that set it apart from the rest. And this is why numismatics is not simply a hobby but a passion that combines art, history, science, and adventure. And when the story of the $10 million 1951's wheat penny spread across collector circles, it cemented its place as one of the most valuable pennies in existence, joining the ranks of the 1943 copper cent, the 1909 SVDB, and the 1955 double die as icons of American coinage. And what makes it even more exciting is that while only one known specimen carries the exact combination of errors that drove its price to astronomical levels, other error types in the 1951's series still hold immense value, with some repunched mint mark varieties fetching thousands and high-grade double dies commanding similar premiums, proving that the 1951's remains a fertile ground for collectors and a reminder that the smallest mistakes in the minting process can create some of the most valuable treasures in history. So the next time you come across a wheat penny, do not overlook it as a simple copper coin from decades past, but instead take the time to examine the date, the mint mark, the surfaces, the edges, and the overall strike, because within those details may lie the errors and mistakes that could transform an ordinary cent into a life-changing discovery. And that is the story and enduring allure of the 1951's wheat penny worth $10 million, a coin born from mistakes yet elevated into legend through rarity, desirability, and the relentless pursuit of collectors who know that history sometimes hides its greatest treasures in the most unexpected places.